Welcome to the Doctor's Mentor Show. If you believe that medicine is an industry and not a profession, if you enjoy submitting complex reimbursement claims, or you would do another residency just for fun, be advised, you're about to be offended. You should probably leave now.
All this talk about mentoring doctors is ridiculous. I thought doctors learned to do everything better than everyone else the first year of medical school. At least that's the way they act.
If you love assisting patients with vitality breakthroughs, if the right to practice medicine without interference is important, and you want expert tips for practice freedom and profits to support your epic life, welcome aboard and prepare to be blown away. The Doctor's Mentor Show starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Lori Barr.
Somewhere between the time when Luke Skywalker first left Tatooine and before Princess Leia was saved from being the slave of Jabba the Hutt, I was a junior in college studying to become a doctor. That year was the turning point where I learned the value of a good letter of recommendation.
Today's topic:
legacy.
I worked the graveyard shift as an emergency room receptionist at Miller Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee. Dr. Powell, the ER doctor, and Elaine, the feisty ER nurse who drove a BMW, and Mike, the EMT, they gave me my first glimpse of what practicing as a doctor might look like. After working many interesting nights, hand-typing the admissions forms on a manual typewriter on a desk with a buzzer underneath the drawer in case I needed to covertly call the security guard, I knew without a doubt that I did want to become a doctor. The staff and the patients, they trusted me to help out, even though I was just 18 years old. Dr. Powell's letter of support assisted me in getting accepted into my top choices for medical school. Needless to say, I thought the only kind of doctor worth being was an ER doctor. The ER is always so exciting. Back when I was in the ER, I didn't realize what I was asking when I asked Dr. Powell to write me that letter of recommendation for my medical school applications. I didn't have the faintest idea what kind of a salary that doctors could make, and I knew that it would be enough to raise a family and enjoy my vacations if I lived within my means. In another show, I talked about how to ask someone for a letter of recommendation. So now let's flip that coin. In this show, we're going to talk about what to do when someone asks you for a letter of recommendation. But before we write that letter, before we step through that, let's step back and really consider the secret code of recommendation letters and what potential they hold, the good and the bad. You see, the letter of recommendation is a power tool. By that, I mean it falls into the realm of one of the three currencies each human possesses and controls during their life. This is what you trade for the experiences you want in life. You have three currencies: money, time, and influence. And influence is also known as power. The letter of recommendation is a tool that falls into the realm of influence or power. In the hands of a skilled influencer, a person who wields power by virtue of his or her professional accomplishments, the letter of recommendation either makes or breaks the person's chances of being offered a position. The person who wields the power, the influencer who writes the letter, must be considered credible by the group that is receiving and considering the application. It might be an admissions committee, an awards committee, a nomination committee, the directors of a corporation, or even partners in a practice. They weigh the letter, and the weight will depend upon the perception the folks on the committee have of the person who's writing the letter, the influencer. Personal experience with that influencer trumps all, and a proven track record of referrals is neck and neck with personal experience. Let's say that you've approached a credible influencer and that person has agreed to write you a letter. You've asked that person to write you a great letter of recommendation, and they've agreed, and you feel great about it. Yet besides your mentor just being an all-around nice person, there are two reasons that may not be obvious that some influencers agree to write letters. One reason is that they enjoy the practice of seeding good talent to select locations to help shape the future of the specialty. The second is that a good letter from the right person can help purge a department of unwanted baggage. So what I'm saying is, a great letter can be the ticket to getting rid of someone in your department who is unwanted. Experienced department heads understand the power of both and know how to read between the lines of a letter of recommendation to understand what motives may be behind the outstanding letter. Regardless, A lukewarm or average letter is like a bite of soggy breakfast cereal in room temperature milk on a hot morning without air conditioning. If it wasn't laced with a good bit of sugar, you'd sure have a hard time swallowing it. So anything's better than an average letter. So now let's turn your attention to the crafting of an excellent letter of recommendation. If the protege requesting the letter is too naive to understand how to provide you with information to strengthen the letter, take a few minutes and educate him. Ask him, do you have a short summary of life and professional highlights, or perhaps a letter template of what the committee members are looking for and how you fit that to a T? Next, ask the protege, what homework have you done to gather intelligence about the committee members? Have you gone to the website and done a literature search on the committee members? Have you made a plan to meet these folks and have an honest conversation about their research or career interests even before being invited for an interview? I recently had an organizational psychologist from the University of Texas tell me that that is a surefire way to get into a graduate program, is to figure out who's on the admissions committee, make sure you personally meet them, make sure you express genuine interest in the research they're doing long before you even apply. So another thing you might ask is if the protege has uncovered any relevant connections between interests of the committee members and your own interests as the influencer. So once you've done that, review the qualities that the committee seeks in the applicant and ask the protege how he or she demonstrates each of those qualities. Ask the protege to remind you of specific stories that you can relate in your letter that demonstrate these characteristics. If the protege has a tragic flaw in their record, ask the applicant what they've done or are doing or will do to remedy that situation. If you've not been personally involved in this process with them, make sure they give you the name of someone you can contact and get feedback from who has been involved. Finally, as you're discussing the past with the protege, make sure they remind you how long you've known each other and how you know them best. It's okay if you only have a vague recollection initially. With this prompting, the protege should be able to resurrect memories for you that will help you craft an amazing letter. So now let's get down to writing the letter. What I'm about to describe is how to write an amazing letter for someone you truly believe is worthy of the gift of your best letter, or at least right up there near the top. First, you're going to craft a rough draft of the letter on a piece of paper or with a recorder or using a text-only or rich text file in case you're required to upload the letter to a website that may be sensitive to underlying formatting from word processing programs like Word or Pages. Also, it's helpful to have the draft copy in case you lose your work while entering it into a website. So here's what to include in the rough draft. First paragraph, introduce yourself and why you're in a great position to give your insights to the committee members. Second paragraph, introduce the candidate and something about how long ago and the circumstances under which you met. If the protege continues to work with you regularly, describe that, or describe how long it's been since you last worked closely together. This is also the place to first mention how highly you are recommending this candidate. Third paragraph, specifically list one quality the committee values and how the candidate demonstrates an exceptional measure of that quality. Relate specific anecdotes or hard data that support this claim. Do this for at least two other characteristics the committee seeks with your fourth and fifth paragraphs. Sixth paragraph, describe the tragic flaw, or if there's not one, describe a growth opportunity for this individual. Although each of us is having a perfect human experience, it's helpful for the committee to honestly know what the candidate is working to improve. Sum up with a reiteration of how well the protege matches the characteristics they seek in a candidate and how strongly you recommend the protege. Finally, let them know you're willing to talk further if they have additional questions. That's it. $1 million letter every time. If you stopped right here, it would be sufficient. Yet you can make this letter really valuable if you ask yourself and the protege one more question. Are you ready for that question? The money question? You sure? Okay, here's the money question. What can I convey in my letter that is not clearly demonstrated by the protege's curriculum vitae and is important to the committee? For example, I recently updated my CV. Afterward, I asked myself, what have I not included in my CV that a great letter of recommendation could convey the next time I'm up for a reappointment, say? Next, I asked, who would be the most credible person to share that information on my behalf? So one example on my CV was when I first came into private practice, I used the relationships I'd nurtured in 10 years in academics to create opportunities for radiology residents to come and have exciting elective, really, like here's how pediatric radiology looks in private practice. exciting elective opportunities with us, even though we didn't have a medical school and it had only a very limited graduate medical education program in our city. And yet we were able to create that just because of some of the relationships I already enjoyed and my colleagues already enjoyed. We leveraged those together and created something very special. Now, it didn't last, so I don't really have it on my CV. Yet it's a great example of having leadership skills and being able to pull something together. So I know just the person who can convey that on my behalf if that would be helpful as I look at reappointment. So that's the kind of thing you want to look for and share, if you can, if the protege can help you identify those things that the committee might be interested in. And it's really important when you're considering your own CV. So once you've identified those tidbits, figure out the best place in your letter to include them, or create a new paragraph starting with an introduction like, "One thing you may not know about Jane is," and then after you bring out the fact, make sure you include what impact it's had on the community or on individuals. Now, after you've done that rough draft, go ahead and sleep on it. You may think of other things. Your subconscious mind will work with that material overnight, and you may have other things, other ways you can improve that letter in the morning. So if at all possible, give yourself at least 24 hours to think about the letter on a subconscious level and make it even better before you do your final copy. If you're comfortable, share the letter with the protege. It helps to instill confidence that they may not yet have in their own ability to influence and to mentor others. And that'll be important as they develop into the type of professional you want to see them grow into.
Your next step.
So now let me make a suggestion for your next action. Even if you're not yet in a position of influence to be asked to write a great letter of recommendation on someone else's behalf, here's something you can do right now that will give you practice, improve your own self-esteem, and help you update your curriculum vitae. I want you to spend just a few minutes dreaming about an ideal practice opportunity you'd like to create or an award you might enjoy winning. Next, review your CV with a critical eye, noting what experiences you've already had that qualify you for that opportunity that you've dreamed about, and then what's missing. Ask yourself who you need to become to achieve that which you desire, and write down the additional skills and experiences that would require. But write them down on a copy of your CV as if they've already happened. And then write yourself a great letter of recommendation. Make sure you include at least one tidbit not revealed by your enhanced CV you've created for this opportunity. What I want you to do next is to reread this and then file it in what I call the Someday Maybe file. I actually have a file in my file cabinet drawer called Someday Maybe. And this is a place for dreams. This is where I put ideas that I want to get off my mind and know that they're in a safe place. So file this in your Someday Maybe file and pull it out every once in a while and just review it. You'll be surprised what impact just writing this letter has on your view of yourself, your CV, and the writings of letters of recommendation.
There's more to explore at thedoctorsmentor.com.
As the months and years pass, you begin to notice that it's easier and easier to gain the experiences you need to become the person of influence you glimpsed in this exercise and to write great letters for those proteges you choose to mentor.
Are you stopping at a hospital? Hello? Don't you know that hospitals are one of the sickest places on the planet? Don't touch anything in there and get out as fast as you can.